Hi there. In this video, I'm going to give you a full rundown of BuildSync's functionality. We're going to start by creating a project in BuildSync. Then we are going to move on to uploading our plans and specs. And of course, ultimately, we're going to be uploading our submittals and reviewing these submittals that BuildSync processed. So to start using the software, we're just going to come to buildsync.ai. And we're going to log in using the credentials you would have created. Now, once we've done that, that is immediately going to take us through to our project screen. Now, our project screen is just where we set up our projects in the software. So to create a project, we simply just hit this button here, Add Project, and we just fill in the details that are necessary. So we put in the name, the client, the architect, the project contact. Now, the project contact is often where people get a little bit confused. Now, essentially what the project contact means is whoever you want to be notified when BuildSync has reviewed the submittals you've uploaded, just put them in this box here. So for example, if it was me that I wanted to be notified when submittals were processed, I had put myself in there. And let's just also say that I wanted to notify my co-founder. I'm going to put his email address in there as well. You can then select the project type. For the submittal review tool, you're going to choose the operations. For our pre-con tool, our proposal comparison tool, you can choose our pre-con tool, but for submittals, just operations, and then you can set it as a favorite, which essentially means it's your favorite and it will appear at the top of the list when you log into BuildSync, and you can subsequently filter by your favorites. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come through now to one I created. So we're just going to click on this project here. And as you can see, when we click on it, we immediately see our plans and specs screen here. No great prizes for guessing what this tab does. This is just where your plans and specs live. So to add plans and specs, we simply click the Upload Design button here, and we can choose to upload, say, our specifications first. Just going to pull up here and let's just pretend that this was our specifications. I'm going to hit open. I'm going to hit upload, and BuildSync will start reading through those specifications. Once that's done, you will see a little box saying uploading. You'll then see it change to uploading successful, and you'll actually see behind in this screen here the specs that you've just uploaded be populated. You then do the same thing for drawings, upload them, and then any addenda or any other design documents you want BuildSync to check your submittals against. Now, just a couple of items of clarification here. If you are uploading separate files, so let's say your drawings, you have one set of drawings, but they are made up of 10 different PDF files. You can upload 10 PDF files at once. You don't have to do them one at a time. The only thing you need to be careful of is you do need to make sure they're all underneath the same header. So for example, all of my drawing files, I upload under drawings. All of my specs, I do the same thing. Any addenda or any other documentation. Just make sure you're uploading them separately. Once that is done, it means we can now come over to our Submittal Review tab, which is ultimately why people use BuildSync. So we're going to hit our Submittal Review tab, and as we can see, we've already uploaded some submittals here. But when you're first using it, you just hit this button here, Upload Submittals, and you do the same thing. You drag and drop your submittals in. Now, it does not matter if these submittals are individual product submittals, or they're submittal packages, or you've got a bunch of submittals that pertain to different divisions and you're just dumping them in all at once. None of that matters. Yeah. This choosing a division, this item here, if you're feeling generous and all the submittals you are uploading pertain to Division 3 or Div 26 or Div 22 for plumbing, you can choose a division, but it isn't necessary. You think of it, you're giving BuildSync a hand, but you don't have to do it. Now, once you have uploaded your submittals, if you see the status column here turn to in queue, you've done everything correctly. You can now close out BuildSync, get on with something that's more important than just reviewing the submittal, that part is going to be taken care of. You're going to receive a notification and compliance report when that's done. But what's actually happening in the background is 4 distinct stages the BuildSync's putting the submittal through. The first thing the BuildSync does is it just breaks down the submittal to a product level, as we can see here. So this particular submittal had 13 different products on it. If your submittal or your submittal package that you're uploading has more than that, great. We pretty regularly see submittals getting uploaded with 50, 60, even 100 different products on it. So throw in any submittal package with as many products as you want, and BuildSync's going to catch them all. It's not going to be an issue. Next step, though, is let's see what those products. Let's see their characteristics. So I'm going to hit review characteristics, and that just brings up the characteristics of those products. So as we can see here, left-hand side has the submittal characteristic. That was what was pulled off the submittal itself. The middle of the screen here, design characteristic. That is what our plans and specs are calling for. So think of that as our design requirement. The third step in our process is BuildSync will then make its determination. Does this fail, meaning it's no good? Is this unknown, which means it's potentially ambiguous? Maybe it's design conflicts, maybe it's missing items. Or does this pass, meaning it's all good, happy days, meets plans and specs. Now let's cover these sequentially so you can get a bit of an understanding of what they actually mean. So if we start with the pass, if we just hit see text, left-hand side is going to show us the submittal is stating we have a 5-year warranty. Design value we can see here is provide a minimum of 5-year warranty. So great, it's fairly self-explanatory. That meets plans and specifications. Things get a little bit more involved when you are looking at failures and unknowns. And the behavior that we see from users is when they first start using the software, they check everything. But after a while, they do tend to spend much more time on the failures and unknowns, because really that's the kind of critical information that they're going to get insights from for design teams, GCs, or subcontractors, or even vendors. So if we look at this failure, for example, so what we have here is BuildSync has this in the submittal value. The design requirements calling for this, but what's really interesting about this is BuildSync is actually calling out that the reason it failed is because note that the frosted polycarbonate lens for 75R has not been selected. And we can see on the design requirements, it is specifically calling that out. So what we're going to do is we are just going to click See Files. And what that is going to show us is that's going to show us 2 things. The left-hand side is going to be the original copy of the submittal. As we can see here, it will always take you through to the correct page that the submittal, the characteristic rather, is on. And then the right-hand side is going to show us the plans or the specs, and that's dependent on what BuildSync has compared that characteristic against. So if we just zoom in here, we can actually see, if we just explore this a little bit, that actually it looks like, you know, our subcontractor potentially has made some selections here, which is great. They've told us, you know, what items we're looking out for. But BuildSync has put this box in red that the luminaire schedule on 1E states frosted lens for SK4. So we can see the frosted polycarbonate lens has not been selected. Now this red box in itself, that is the final stage that I mentioned of that 4-stage process BuildSync goes through. The final stage is BuildSync can mark up the failures that it found. The right-hand side is going to show us the plans in this case. Could be the specs, but in this case it's the plans. So what we're going to do is we're going to look for SK4. So on the luminaire schedule, and we're just going to zoom in. I'm going to check this out. So let's see here. SK4, there we go. So we found SK4 and we have found that the frosted lens specifically was called out, and we can see correspondingly that it's not on the, it wasn't selected on the submittal itself. So that's why BuildSync has failed it. Now, Before we talk about exporting this data, I do just want to cover unknowns, because unknowns are, people always have a misconception about them. They're very important. Unknowns is essentially where BuildSync cannot make a determination. So if we look in this instance, for example, we have got the submittal value is stating it did not list the LED estimated useful life, but the design value, design requirements are actually saying, hey, for this product, it needs an estimated useful life of 50,000 hours at 70%. So BuildSync hasn't found anything. It's not been listed on the submittal itself. So that's a good question for your vendor, subcontractor, whoever it is, and say, to get that resolved. Where unknowns become particularly interesting is where we find design conflicts, which happens pretty regularly. So this is an example of that. So BuildSync has pulled out this on the submittal value. Then we've pulled out this for the design requirements. And then BuildSync has generated this note. So we can read the note, the submittal fixture calls for L50 in the product, but the minimum lumen column calls for 6,400, which is a design conflict. The submittal matches the product, but not the lumen column. Confirm design mismatch with design team. So stuff like this will happen all the time. It's a good question for your design team. Also, what will happen all the time is a contradiction between plans and specs. You've probably all in your submittal review journeys have noticed that before. Well, if that is the case, your plans and specs do contradict each other. BuildSync is just going to flag that for you. Now, the final thing that I want to talk about is I want to talk about exporting this data, because it's super important we get this into the hands of relevant stakeholders, be it subs, GCs, design teams, whoever we need to. All I'm going to do is just hit this button here, download overview. And secondly, I'm going to come into the submittal and hit download submittal. What this does, it downloads both this data to two distinct places. The first thing that it does is it just brings this information into Excel. Now, for all of our customers, this Excel compliance report that BuildSync has generated can be white labeled, which basically means your logo's in the top left-hand corner. And within reason, we can make amendments to the layout as well. But all this is just a recreation of the data from BuildSync in an Excel format. So it just states how many products we had in the submittal, how many failures, how many unknowns, and how many passes. This tab along the bottom here, what this shows us is this shows us the products that made up the individual submittal. Where we can use the marked up submittal in connection with this is that, for example, if I'm a GC and I need to send this back to my subcontractor because, what does this say? This color was wrong on one of the fixtures. We have color 3000, but the fixture schedule calls for 3500K. We can see that in the design characteristic here. What we can do is we can kick this back to our sub and say, hey, check out page 22. And we can also supply them with the submittal as well. So we come through, they can then bring up their submittal and they can see specifically where the issue was. So they can see the Luminaire schedule on 1E states color 3500K for BL1-8. Well, 3000 was selected. So that's we're getting ahead of that problem. What we can also do is, of course, if we were the GC in this process, we can just send this through to our design team. It's not uncommon to have no failures on a submittal, but just some stuff that's potentially ambiguous. And maybe that pertains to design conflicts or contradictions between plan and specs or whatever it may be. If that's the case, we can just send this through to our design team and say, hey, check out product SK4. There's a design conflict. Which direction do you want to go? So ultimately, what our customers are reporting, and you may have heard if you're watching this video, if you made it this far in, is that using BuildSync, we're saving up 70 to 80% of the time taken to review submittals, and we're driving first-time approval ratings up to 90-95%. If you would like to try this for free, I would absolutely love you to try the software. So just get in contact with us, head over to the website, book some time in our calendar with one of our guys, and we'd be more than delighted to get you set up on a free trial. So that's it for BuildSync. Thank you very much. Cheers.